Okay, you ready?
Welcome to the Daily Joe.
It's the Daily Joe Show. I'm Joe Pliss.
And I'm Steve Daly. And this is
The Daily Joe Show.
You got it. And today we are here to talk about
Parks.
Parks, our beautiful parks in town. And what inspired us for this topic today was checking out our favorite Facebook group,
Willimantic Today. So we're going to do our first segment, Willimantic Today. But before we take a stroll through the park, what else has caught your eye on Willimantic Today?
During my daily scroll. I saw the school consolidation, right? The
Elementary
Board
school.
of Ed
The
had
proposal.
their meeting. Yep. Last night.
That would be a big deal, but not for anybody who's got kids in school right now, right? Because it'll
take a few years to get, but it is an interesting topic. We don't have time for it today, but certainly consolidation can be beneficial for expenses, but can be tough as far as transporting everybody to get there. And there's always growing pains when you move to a new place. So of course that's going to be
right. It came up in front of the town council. Lots of questions. I hope people ask those questions.
A lot of lessons to be learned from Mansfield, I'd say.
Because they did something similar.
Yeah.
And they have a great playground.
The playground, it's great. I think it'd be good to, talk to some of the teachers in there too, because there are some pros of it and some cons that were overlooked.
That's a little teaser, maybe another show.
Yeah.
The
other thing was the glass coming into
the windows
to the old Hurley building.
The most glorious windows on Main Street.
Oh, they're beautiful.
What was your first thought when you saw the windows?
I loved it. I can't wait to walk around here more and just enjoy that corner and
maybe I'm getting
and all
jaded.
the other people.
Maybe I'm getting jaded. My first thought was, God, I hope nobody breaks it.
You're a curmudgeon old man.
I'm becoming a local.
I'm optimistic
I'm
about
becoming
it.
a local.
Oh, welcome. All right, good stuff.
They're beautiful, and I hope it inspires a lot of positivity. I think it will. It's great to see those windows. It was a long time coming. That whole project,
they inspired it in me.
That whole project was like
positive.
a 20-year project, I think. So it's great to see it come to fruition.
It's
good things.
I'm excited.
Hey, and this is not in Willimantic today, but right after I got through just marveling at those beautiful windows, driving by that other big building that on the corner that just is taking forever, I actually saw two guys working.
You saw some people
Now they just had like rakes and they were working at a snail's pace, getting the leaves off. It was pretty sad.
That's right, grasshopper.
It was two people. So someday.
Rake on, rake off.
Yeah.
Just
like
back
that.
and forth. Good.
All right, so that was it.
The other issue that we saw though in Willimantic today.
This deserves some quoting here because. Mr. Martinez.
There was a post in Willimantic today there about our beautiful Willimantic Parks, which, I love visiting them. I love enjoying them. Certainly there are things that I see when I'm at the park that I'm like, this could definitely be better. And I guess first thing I'd say is please comment down below here your thoughts on our parks, what your favorite park is, and something that you think could be done to improve it. But certainly I think Ricky had a pretty good point in pointing out some of his issues with the Heritage River Park.
He does go fishing down by Heritage Park. That's right near the Frog Bridge and all those big mill buildings right there. Last year and the year before.
Maybe the garden on the bridge.
Yeah,
right?
I've done some work with the garden club down there to put plants in there, so I've seen that, and it does get to be an awful garbagey mess down there. It's really pretty bad. The dog poops, the garbage cans get overflowing. So there was this whole conversation about that. He was obviously very frustrated, and
what's the quote there?
I think the refrain that he said over and over is, that people just don't care.
People don't care.
Obviously, he cares.
And I think that's the biggest thing about that phrase is someone that says that, obviously, they care. And I'm sure anyone that reads that is empathizing with him, they care too. So on that note, people do care. I care.
Yeah.
You care. But some people are still choosing to leave that place a mess, which is really unfortunate.
It's in a great spot.
Yeah.
It's right near downtown. It's right next to the river. It's been landscaped. There's lots of parking right there. There's so many positive aspects to it, and then it just looks like shit because nobody, because nobody cleans up. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean when we have a park that we can't maintain? The fences are getting broken and they don't get repaired. The garbage doesn't get picked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess that's the real question.
What do we do about it?
Yeah,
well, whose responsibility would that be?
Well, somebody mentioned that because it's a state park, there's some kind of relationship that the town was required to have a committee to maintain that, but the committee disbanded.
Oh.
So
okay.
That's some as a town councilor that caught my ear, or I guess I was reading it. If there's a required committee, we don't have a committee, that means that I think the town council needs to do something about getting people on that committee.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's really good insight because, yeah, that is the big question is who's responsible for this? And it, responsibility can come in so many ways, right? There's patrolling that park and picking up and making sure that things are fixed. You're talking about rusty fences and things, making sure that trash is picked up. My head goes right to what I always learned at Horizons, and what I love about that place is they're very proactive in their approach for a lot of things, and that's engineering the environment. So looking at the park and saying, oh, is it set up to be maintained, to be cleaned? Are there adequate trash receptacles, and are the materials that are used to build it, long lasting?
Is it? I thought where you're going to go with that is, does the park have enough different kinds of uses so that people are coming down to the park frequently enough? Maybe it's
that can be part of engineering the environment. Yeah, for sure.
That's what I think you're going. So maybe it's only attracting, I don't know, say dog walkers and
fishermen
and kids, or whoever the slobs are that throw in the garbage.
So you got the three demographics there.
It's not like you don't see picnics down there. There's not a playground for people to bring kids down there. There's not a basketball court. There's not.
So who are we attracting with that environment that's down there? And certainly some wonderful people, but also some careless people as well.
Well, one theory on parks that you and I talked about a little bit before the show is, by having a multi-purpose park and lots of different young people, old people, active people, walkers, you get more people using the park, you get more eyes on the street, to kind of quote Jane Jacobs. The more people that are there, the more likely it is that things will be maintained and picked up. So maybe there's not critical mass of usage there, and that's when these parks start to fall into disrepair.
That's pretty cool. That's a really interesting point, because so the more people that use a park, the cleaner it is.
Well, certainly,
and the safer it is.
Certainly, there'll be more demand for it.
Right.
There'll be more squeaky wheel. There'll be more. Mr. Martinez won't be a lone voice of despair.
Absolutely.
When you get 10 people complaining about it, then does that shift the priorities of the public works or whoever is supposed to be responsible for maintaining it?
I think so. Yeah, I think you would find that, right? That's a public good, and I think when you have all that use, it's the proof of the public good is much more evident to the people using it and to the people passing by and the people responsible for it. That's a really fascinating. So expanding, I guess, the niche of the park, or to include different niches or lifestyles, is a benefit to the park.
Right. That's
our whole system.
That's what we were reading. So maybe it's a little counterintuitive, because if you have a park that nobody,
you like nice
nobody goes to
spot.
that park.
Yeah.
So that's why nobody goes to that park.
What's that? Because it's
because nobody goes to it, because it's messy. Nobody wants to go to it. So you have sort of these momentum swings where now we're in a downward momentum. The park is decaying.
Yeah.
We put some landscaping in to try to reverse that momentum, but we're not keeping it cleaned.
I would argue, I guess, like, I just went to New York City, and looking at some of the parks there, is awesome because there's a lot of incredible parks in the city. And you know what? It's not that private. There's a lot of people in there, but you find your space in that park. And I mean, some of the most zen times I have is when the city's kind of buzzing around you and you can just sit, even if someone's sitting on the bench next to you. It's a really peaceful place. And I know that's a very different feel, but I think you have you can find that same zen in a well cared for space with people around you as well. And you kind of find your solitude within that. Or I did. I know that might not be for everyone, but I don't think we're at a critical mass of people in the parks where we need to worry about that too much.
No. In fact, we're on the other end of the spectrum.
Right.
You know, we don't have enough use, at least probably a heritage park.
Well, let's go back then to like the why. Why would we we don't have enough use, so we can't just push people and say you need to do this, you need to use the park. But why would people use the park? Why do we think that it's a good thing for the community?
Okay, so let's look at who it's good for right now. Apparently, you go fishing. I know there's a fence there, so I don't know if you have to climb the fence. So I don't know if we're making it ideal for people to fish. Maybe it needs to be easier for people to go fishing.
Better river access.
Maybe maybe that's part of it. I see dog walkers because I see dog poop. So that people aren't. Some people aren't responsible as far as walking the dogs, but maybe they're, the ones using it. I'm not seeing hey, let's bring the kids down to Heritage Park.
I know I've never thought that. When I've gone on the Garden and the Bridge, I do look down there. I'm like, wow, that's a really cool spot. But
what do you do?
I think I ran down there once and then ran back up.
There's a little loop, which is good for walking.
Is there some I know history happened there. It would be neat to have a little history.
Probably, it's called Heritage.
A little history walk or something to read about those mills that, are there. Because you could,
there could be more history.
Anytime you have plants and plantings and gardens there, you can include information about that. I know my kids love learning about all the insects that visit parks in our backyard. So that's a really good, way for families and things to get there. Any engaging material, which I know is another step of work. So just start with keeping it clean, but some little informational things that help share our natural world around us, I think really draws at least me and a lot of other families and non-families, anyone interested in that.
You're just off the top of your head coming up with some pretty good ideas. The challenge is, and I saw this, I think it was Jared Letzel, he mentions, back to Mr. Martinez, is volunteer. Don't just grouse, but he does his own volunteering. He picks up every time he goes fishing, or at least he does once a year. He said, but not enough people are volunteering.
Yeah,
there isn't enough. There aren't enough bodies or enough creative people putting their time and energy into it. Probably every park needs its own committee,
right?
To come up with this for vitality.
Kind of a public force.
It makes me wonder, if we don't have an active committee, what that means about what we should do with that park.
Right. I mean, it's almost like we don't want to pay more taxes, but we want parks and we want them to be maintained and picked up.
Do we?
Do we want parks?
If you can't get a committee of people to support a park, does the park deserve to exist?
Yes.
Should the only thing be,
but I think, it's hard because people are busy. This speaks to, I believe, why we need parks. I don't know if I can get on a little soapbox about it here.
This is our closing soapbox.
This is our closing soapbox. Oh gosh. Well, there's 5 big reasons why I think we need parks. The first one is it's accessible, free outdoor space. It's like the outdoor meeting place, the outdoor living room of your town.
That's a good
Everybody should feel comfortable there. Everybody has a little patch of grass that is wherever they are in that moment. So it's an incredible shared space. I believe, especially in this digital age of isolation. And honestly, we're getting to just like corporate messaging on our social media. I mean, besides our work, now we're not even actually face to face at work. But there's not a lot of places where we go to actually just interact with each other. And we talk about how important libraries are for this reason. That isn't something you have to go and pay for, right? So it's a third space in that sense. We had that conversation about those.
Yes, it could be. I thought it was a third space.
And I think those spaces are so important, especially as we look to the future and how we want things to go, because by not having those, we're just becoming more and more isolated in our groups, in our niches, and we don't see other perspectives as much, at least not through a lens that we're getting it on our feed, which is curated to you, right? So it's a really, I think, important, what do you call that? The mixing pot of who we are as a community, and being outside, everyone's on equal ground. And I love my kids going there because they can run around, meet all kinds of different friends that they wouldn't have found, unless they're going to their school or on their soccer team. But here are people in their neighborhood, in their shared living space, that they get to interact with. And then I get to meet those parents or people that don't have kids that are there. I get to meet other community members. And I think some of my strongest bonds have been through situations like this, just meeting people that are in my life because we live in this proximity. And it's a really special place.
So you're talking sort of in general the benefits of these parks. And I guess you could take that lens and say, okay, well, what is it about Heritage Park that checks those boxes and what doesn't? And then
it's free. Check.
It's
one.
It's free. It can be used for some different groups, but not many.
It's generally walkable for a lot of people.
Especially if you're handicapped, wheelchair, you can go through there. But maybe we have some questions around responsibility for maintenance, and I think that was sort of the gist of Mr. Martinez's.
Parks are really, and I really agree with that. I think step one is to clean it up and have an inviting place, because then step two from there is you talk about having it be multi-purpose, right? And certainly having some infrastructure for certain things helps with that, but also just having a big open space that community that lives near there and uses it the most brings their purpose. But they've got to have an open, blank slate to do that with.
And I think even before step one is the question of who's going to do it. And we haven't figured that one out.
I think this goes back to the Strongtown principle. The next smallest step.
What's the next smallest step?
It's calling our friends and going down there with some gloves and trash bags. It's funny because Earth Day, we all get into a frenzy. I feel I went to Lauder Park and did that with our neighborhood. But it can be more than just Earth Day. It's got to be more than once a year. Yeah. And so that's what I'm realizing. I just talked to my business group about doing a trash pickup. So maybe I guess we'll do it at Heritage Park next.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap this episode up.
That's it. We certainly have more to talk about, but we are out of time.
I think we can pick it up on the next episode.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Make sure you please comment, tell us how you feel about this. It's such an interesting question because you brought up it's like almost the chicken and the egg. How much investment and time do you put into something before it has use? I think you have to put the effort in. Build it and they'll come.
All right.
I've heard that somewhere. That's you're ready? You're like, Steve, look at the time.
I think you need to put something in that shot glass.
Have a great day.
Everybody.